to America or like try to convince my parents.
This is what I'm talking about. It's like,
Have you ever tried to save someone's life, only to realize you might have just handed them a final, devastating blow? There is a massive scandal exploding right now in the reality TV community, and it is tearing the entire fandom apart. A leaked video has been making the rounds on TikTok and Instagram, and it exposes a side of Sumit and Jeni that no one ever saw coming. We are talking about a desperate husband, a terminal diagnosis, a drained secret bank account, and a fake visa scheme that has completely blown up in everyone's faces. Rumors suggest that what we are seeing is either the most tragic act of true love ever caught on camera, or the most manipulative, unforgivable betrayal in reality television history. Fans are actively debating if Sumit is a heartbroken hero who made a massive mistake, or if he just pulled off the ultimate scam. Before we dive deep into this leaked footage and uncover the shocking truth behind Sumit's ultimate betrayal, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Hitting subscribe and turning on notifications ensures you never miss out on the crazy rumors, exclusive theories, and deep dives we do here every single week. Your support helps us keep digging into the shadows of these reality TV relationships, so take 1 second to like and subscribe right now, and let's get into the madness. This whole nightmare started when reports claimed Jeni received a terrifying medical diagnosis. While the exact details of her condition have been kept under wraps to protect her privacy, medical insiders and internet sleuths have speculated that it is a severe, rapidly progressing issue, possibly a complex heart condition or an aggressive form of illness that local doctors simply cannot treat. The consensus among the medical professionals in their home country and neighboring regions was incredibly grim. They gave her a heartbreakingly short timeline. The only sliver of hope, the only chance Jeni had at surviving this ordeal, was to be immediately transferred to the United States for advanced, specialized medical treatment. You can only imagine the kind of suffocating pressure that puts on a relationship. The clock was ticking, and every single day, Jeni's physical condition visibly deteriorated. She was wasting away on the couch, losing her strength, while Sumit was frantically trying to figure out how to save the woman he loved. But getting a medical or emergency visa to the USA is notoriously difficult, especially when you are from a high-fraud region and you are already in a desperate situation. Sumit tried everything. Reports say he applied legally multiple times, going through the official embassy channels, submitting medical records, begging consulates, and doing everything by the book. But he kept hitting a brick wall. The visa applications were repeatedly denied. You have to put yourself in his shoes for a second to understand the immense psychological break that happens when a piece of stamped paper is the only thing standing between your wife and her survival. The legal routes were entirely exhausted. The bureaucratic red tape was essentially handing Jeni a death sentence. And this is exactly where the story takes a massive, dark turn into the absolute unthinkable. When a man is backed into a corner and watching his entire world crumble, he stops thinking rationally. Rumors suggest that Sumit started searching the dark corners of the internet and underground networks for a fixer, a coyote, or a visa broker who could bypass the legal system entirely. He was looking for a fake visa. Now, obtaining fraudulent international travel documents is an incredibly serious federal offense. If you get caught, you aren't just banned from the US for life, you are looking at severe criminal charges. But Sumit didn't care about the law anymore. He only cared about saving Jeni. The problem was, this underground broker demanded an astronomical amount of cash up front. Sumit didn't have that kind of money lying around, but he knew exactly who did. Jeni had a secret savings account, a nest egg she had been building for years, meant for their future or perhaps her own end-of-life care. Without saying a single word to his dying wife, without giving her any choice in the matter, Sumit quietly accessed her accounts. He completely drained Jeni's life savings, every last cent. He took all of her money and handed it over to a faceless, nameless shadow broker who promised to deliver a counterfeit US visa that would get Jeni on a plane to an American hospital. It was a massive gamble. He was betting her entire financial security on a highly illegal scheme. He honestly believed that once he had the visa in hand, he would surprise her, fly her to safety, and she would forgive him for stealing her money because he had saved her life. But that wasn't the whole story, and what happened next would shock everyone and lead to the catastrophic leaked footage we are all analyzing right now. The underground broker took Jenny's life savings and simply vanished into thin air. There was no fake visa. There was no backdoor entry to the United States. It was a complete and total scam. Sumit had been played. He had taken the very last resource his severely ill wife possessed, and he had thrown it into a black hole. He didn't just fail to save her, he actively destroyed her safety net. This brings us to the shocking TikTok video that recently surfaced, leaked by an alleged neighbor or family friend who claims to have caught the devastating aftermath on camera. The footage shows the exact moment Sumit returns to their small apartment after realizing the broker has disappeared with all the cash. The visual is incredibly disturbing. Sumit walks through the door looking completely destroyed. His hair is wildly unkempt, his shirt is completely unbuttoned, and his eyes are swollen and bloodshot red, like he hasn't slept in days. He looks totally unhinged, like a man who has completely lost his mind. As soon as he steps foot inside the door and sees Jenny lying weakly on the sofa, her body frail from the illness, he completely breaks down. He drops to the floor and starts wailing like a helpless child. The audio is chaotic, but you can clearly hear the raw, guttural panic in his voice. Jenny, clearly terrified and confused by her husband's sudden breakdown, struggles to get up. With her voice trembling, you can hear her ask, "What happened, Sumit? Why are you crying like this?" And this is the exact moment the trap springs shut on Sumit's credibility, creating a massive dilemma that has reality TV fans arguing in comment sections all over the internet. Sumit crawls across the floor, grabs onto Jenny's legs, and violently sobs into her knees. Through his broken, hyperventilating gasps, he confesses to the ultimate betrayal. He admits that he couldn't get the visa legally. He admits that he was terrified of losing her. And then, he drops the absolute bombshell. He confesses that he went behind her back, drained her entire bank account, and gave her life savings to a shady trafficker for a fake visa. He admits that the broker scammed him and ran off with the money. He screams that he has lost her final lifeline and that he is a terrible, unforgivable criminal. This leaked confession has caused a total meltdown online. There is a lot of buzz online about this specific moment, with fans speculating that Sumit might not be telling the full truth. This is the credibility dilemma we have to talk about. Did Sumit actually get scammed by a fake visa broker in a desperate, romantic attempt to save his wife's life? Or is that just a really convenient, emotionally manipulative cover story for a guy who just stole his sick wife's money? Think about it. The money is untraceable cash. The broker is a convenient ghost. And Sumit's dramatic, tearful confession on the floor? Some behavioral experts and body language analysts on TikTok are calling it out as a classic narcissistic performance. They argue that he is using extreme emotional displays to force Jenny into comforting him, making himself the victim of the story, so she doesn't hold him accountable for literally robbing her blind. But the stakes here are escalating way beyond just internet gossip. Because if Sumit is telling the truth, the financial and professional destruction is absolute. They are now completely broke. Jenny's medical clock is still ticking, and now they have zero funds to even afford her basic palliative care at home, let alone an international flight. Furthermore, by actively engaging in a conspiracy to commit visa fraud, Sumit has permanently blacklisted both himself and Jenny from ever legally entering the United States. Even if a miracle happened and a charity offered to fly them out legally, the U.S. Embassy would immediately flag their file based on his underground activities. He didn't just lose the money, he permanently closed the only door that could have saved her. This is the concrete example of his fatal behavioral flaw. Sumit's desperation completely blinded his judgment. He wanted to play the hero so badly that he bypassed consent, transparency, and logic. And as he lays there crying on the floor, waiting for Jenny's reaction, the internet braced itself for her to absolutely explode. Viewers expected her to kick him out, to scream at him for stealing her money, to call the police. Any normal person would be enraged that their partner secretly drained their accounts while they were dying. But what Jenny did next completely flipped the script, and it has fans questioning everything they know about toxic loyalty and trauma bonding. The internet braced itself for Jenny to completely explode. Viewers watching this leaked footage expected her to kick him out, to scream at him for stealing her money, to grab whatever she could find and throw it at him. Any rational human being would be entirely enraged that their partners secretly drained their life savings while they were literally fighting for their life. You would expect the ultimate reality TV blowout, a screaming match that would echo through the walls of their apartment. But what Jenny did next completely flipped the script, and it has fans questioning everything they know about toxic loyalty, manipulation, and trauma bonding. Jenny didn't scream. She didn't yell. Reports claim that for several agonizing seconds, she just stood there, completely frozen, staring down at her husband, who was a blubbering mess on the floor. The silence in that room must have been deafening. And then the tears started falling from her own eyes. But they weren't tears of anger. In a move that has absolutely baffled psychologists and reality TV commentators across the globe, Jenny's legs gave out, and she sank down to the floor right next to him. She wrapped her arms around the man who had just admitted to robbing her blind, pulled his head into her chest, and started comforting him. Yes, you heard that correctly. She comforted the person who just destroyed her final safety net. Through her own tears, Jenny can be heard whispering words that have now gone completely viral, sparking a massive debate about the dangerous reality of codependent relationships. She strokes his hair and tells him that he is a foolish boy, but she asks him, how could she be mad? She tells him that he sacrificed his own honesty just to try and save her. She says, "You didn't take my money, Sumit. You just tried to save my life." And then she drops the line that has the internet completely divided. She tells him that even 100 mistakes like this are forgiven, because without him, her survival means absolutely nothing. She basically gives him a free pass for committing massive financial betrayal and international fraud, all wrapped up in the romanticized idea that he did it out of pure, desperate love. But this is exactly where the character study of Sumit's behavioral flaw comes into sharp, undeniable focus. Let's really break down what is happening in this scene, because the psychology at play here is incredibly dark. Sumit has this massive, unchecked savior complex. He wants to be the hero of this story so desperately that he is willing to become the villain to get there. He convinced himself that the rules didn't apply to him, that he knew better than the doctors, the embassy, and even his own wife. His fatal flaw isn't just that he makes bad decisions. It is that his need for control completely overrides his respect for his partner. He didn't view Jenny as an equal who deserved to know that her life savings were being gambled away on the black market. He viewed her as a helpless victim that he needed to rescue, even if it meant destroying her in the process. And this leads us directly to the failed emotional appeal of this entire leaked video. Whoever posted this footage clearly wanted the audience to view this as a modern-day Shakespearean tragedy. They wanted the viewers to cry, to feel deep sympathy for these two star-crossed lovers battling against a cruel medical system and an unforgiving immigration process. They wanted to frame Sumit as a tragic hero who just loved his wife too much. But for a massive chunk of the reality TV audience, this emotional appeal completely backfired. It feels incredibly inauthentic and highly manipulative. TikTok sleuths and body language experts have been tearing this footage apart, frame by frame. They are pointing out the deeply uncomfortable power dynamics at play. Think about the setup here. Sumit knows he has committed an unforgivable act. He knows he has ruined them financially. Instead of sitting her down like an adult and facing the consequences of his actions, he bursts through the door, collapses on the floor, and immediately makes himself the victim of his own crime. He hyperventilates, he wails, he creates such an overwhelming scene of emotional distress that Jenny, who is already physically weak and emotionally exhausted from her illness, is forced to abandon her own perfectly justified anger to manage his emotional breakdown. Fans are arguing that this isn't a beautiful moment of forgiveness. It is a masterclass in emotional manipulation. By falling apart so completely, Sumit essentially held Jeni's empathy hostage. He didn't give her the space to be furious. He forced her into a caretaking role at the exact moment she needed him to be strong. The audience isn't buying the romance narrative. They are seeing a man who weaponized his own guilt to escape accountability. The emotional appeal fails because the viewers recognize the deep inauthenticity of a man demanding comfort from the very woman he just victimized. Which brings us to the deep thematic hypocrisy of their entire relationship, the core moral failure that makes this situation so incredibly frustrating to watch. The grand illusion that Sumit and Jeni have been projecting, and the narrative that this leaked video tries to push, is that true love conquers all. They want to believe that as long as they have each other, the money doesn't matter, the visa doesn't matter, and the rules don't matter. But the absolute hypocrisy here is that Sumit's version of love is exactly what guaranteed Jeni's situation would go from bad to completely unmanageable. He justified his theft and his dive into the criminal underworld by claiming it was an act of pure devotion. But true devotion requires transparency. It requires partnership. You do not steal a dying woman's final resources, hand it over to a shadow broker, and call it romance. You call it what it is: financial manipulation and reckless endangerment. The hypocrisy of claiming to love someone so much that you ruin their future is a theme we see over and over in these high-stakes reality TV relationships, but rarely is it this destructive. Sumit claims he was trying to save her life, but his actions have practically ensured that she won't get the medical care she desperately needs. He burned down their house to keep her warm, and now they are both sitting in the ashes. And that is the brutal reality check that hits when the romanticized music of this tragic love story fades out. After the tears dry on that apartment floor, the isolation sets in. This isn't a movie where a dramatic confession magically fixes the plot. This is real life, and the consequences of Sumit's self-sabotage are suffocating. They are now completely isolated. Reports claim that friends and family members who might have been willing to help them financially have completely backed away. Nobody wants to hand over their hard-earned money to a man who just proved he is willing to blow it on illegal underground scams. The community trust is entirely broken. The medical professionals in their home country, who were already out of options, cannot offer any new treatments because the couple now has absolutely zero funds to pay for even the most basic palliative care. Furthermore, by trying to bypass the legal immigration system, Sumit has isolated them on an international level. Rumors suggest that his dealings with the fake visa broker have permanently flagged their profiles in the immigration databases. They are completely cut off from the outside world, trapped in that small apartment with no money, no legal options, and a medical clock that is ticking louder and faster every single day. The beautiful, poetic idea that their love is enough to sustain them shatters against the cold, hard concrete wall of their reality. Love cannot pay the hospital bills. Love cannot forge a legitimate travel document. Love cannot undo the fact that they are now entirely alone, facing an impossible battle with zero ammunition. This deep, terrifying isolation is the direct result of Sumit trying to play God with Jeni's life. He thought he could outsmart the system, but the system chewed him up and spit him out, leaving Jeni to pay the ultimate price. The tragic irony is that in his desperate attempt to hold on to her, he has pushed away every single legitimate resource that could have made her final days comfortable. But if you think this is where the story ends, you are absolutely mistaken. Because what happens next in the aftermath of this confession pushes this entire saga past the point of no return. There is another layer to this scandal, a final twist that changes the entire context of that leaked video and leaves the audience completely speechless. If you thought the story of a man draining his dying wife's bank account for a fake visa was the absolute rock bottom, you need to brace yourself, because the reality TV community has just uncovered a final twist that changes everything. This brings us to the absolute point of no return, the moment where this tragic romance narrative completely implodes, leaving fans absolutely speechless. Following the viral explosion of that leaked crying video, internet sleuths and armchair detectives across social media began heavily scrutinizing the footage. they started asking questions that nobody was asking in the immediate emotional aftermath. Questions like, who actually filmed this? Why was a camera perfectly positioned in their private living room to capture the exact moment Sumit walked through the door? And most importantly, why did a massive, heavily promoted crowdfunding campaign go live just hours after this supposedly private, devastating moment was leaked to the public? Rumors suggest that this entirely heartbreaking situation might have a much darker, incredibly manipulative underlying motive. There is a massive, growing theory circulating online that the entire video, the crying, the confession, Jenny's immediate forgiveness was a completely staged performance. Let that sink in for a second. Reports claim that some viewers believe Sumit and Jeni, desperate for cash and out of legal options, realized that a tragic story of a botched underground visa scheme could generate immense public sympathy. The theory is that they purposefully set up the camera, acted out this heart-wrenching scene of betrayal and absolute forgiveness, and strategically leaked it to reality TV gossip pages to pull at the heartstrings of millions of viewers. The timing is undeniably suspicious. Almost immediately after the video started trending and people in the comments were begging to know how they could help this poor, scammed couple, a GoFundMe link miraculously appeared on several fan pages, asking for astronomical donations to recover the stolen money and fund an emergency medical flight. This speculation has absolutely shattered the fandom. If these allegations hold any truth, it means that Sumit and Jeni weaponized their own very real medical tragedy to manipulate the public into funding their lives. It takes the story from a misguided, desperate act of love and twists it into a calculated, predatory grift. Fans are pointing out the theatrical nature of Sumit's breakdown, arguing that his wailing looks incredibly forced upon second glance, and that Jenny's instant, poetic forgiveness sounds more like a rehearsed script than a genuine reaction to losing her entire life savings. The internet is actively debating whether there ever was a fake visa broker to begin with. Some wild theories even suggest that Sumit might have lost that money through terrible investments or other reckless financial behavior, and he fabricated the entire "I gave it to a coyote to save your life" story to avoid her anger, realizing that framing himself as a desperate, romantic hero was the only way she wouldn't leave him. Regardless of whether the video was a genuine moment of absolute devastation or a highly coordinated scam, Sumit and Jeni have officially crossed the point of no return. The damage is entirely irreversible. If the story is true, they are hopelessly isolated, financially ruined, and permanently blacklisted by international immigration authorities, leaving Jeni to face her medical crisis with absolutely zero resources. But if the rumors of a staged grift are true, the consequences are arguably even more destructive. They have completely alienated the only community that might have genuinely rallied behind them. Reality TV fans who initially felt deep sorrow for the couple are now expressing intense outrage and betrayal. You cannot play with people's empathy on this level and expect to walk away unscathed. The public scrutiny has become absolutely suffocating. Reports claim that local authorities and crowdfunding platforms are now closely monitoring their accounts due to the massive influx of fraud allegations. This means that even if they desperately need the money for legitimate medical care now, their funds could be frozen and they could be facing severe legal investigations for wire fraud and deceptive practices. They tried to hack the system, either by buying a fake visa or by allegedly manipulating the public for donations, and in doing so, they have trapped themselves in a nightmare of their own making. There is no going back to normal after this. Their credibility has entirely evaporated. Friends, family, and the internet at large are looking at them not as victims of a cruel world, but as architects of their own absolute destruction. This entire saga is the ultimate masterclass in self-sabotage. It shows exactly what happens when desperation meets deception, when the truth becomes a tool to be twisted, and when people cross ethical lines they can never uncross. Sumit and Jeni's story will go down in reality television history, not as a beautiful tale of star-crossed lovers beating the odds, but as a chilling reminder of how quickly a relationship can devolve into a toxic, mutually assured destruction when accountability is thrown out the window. They gambled with their money, they gambled with their reputations, and most tragically, they gambled with Jenny's life, and they lost everything. Now they have to sit in the ashes of the bridges they burned, facing a deeply uncertain future completely alone. What do you guys think about this massive scandal? Do you believe Sumit genuinely tried to buy a fake visa in a desperate attempt to save his wife? Or do you buy into the rumors that this entire viral breakdown was a calculated, manipulative scam to farm donations from sympathetic fans? Let me know your most unhinged theories down in the comments below, because I read every single one of them. And if you made it this far into the deep dive, you absolutely need to hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We are tracking this story closely, and as soon as new leaked footage or updates drop, you will find it right here. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all in the next video.